it looks like I'm going to be able to upload longer videos. I found an open Wi-Fi open in the area, and as long as this is open and I can stay hooked up to it, my videos are going to be longer. How long this is going to last, I'm not sure. The witch's hat. There really is a lot more that is beginning to appear and make itself evident in connections here as we talk about this. And I really want you guys to check out the rest of the symbolism as it connects into what I'm calling this fractal here, and you're going to see all the symbolism is there. Now, I know right now it might be a little hard to understand kind of what I'm saying for some of you guys, but just check that little owl face out, and then here we have another one of our Sumerian gods, and what has she got there right beside her? The owl. And she herself is symbolized basically as the owl. Now, some of you might only be familiar with what you know of the owl as it's concerned with the Bohemian Club or Bohemian Grove and that tall owl statue in the woods that the elite supposedly sacrifice children to. All right, so it's associated with sacrifice. This owl is really going to show up here also. Believe it or not. Even the serpent, in a more unique and unusual way, is going to show up right here. And it's going to be really a depiction of this serpent that we see right here with these water lines. You see those wavy watermarks, which also means distortion. And it's also symbolism for the sine wave. But just quite simply, that's distortion or disturbing of the water line, and that's what's going to allow this being to break the seal, as you see that unicorn is doing right there, to break that womb, to break the water. Well, that's the occultic plan. They got the science to do that. But you're going to see this owl symbolism tie up with the arch, these two serpents, the scepter between them, and understand how this picture is really a part of this picture. This picture is missing the second half. It's missing the masculinity. Well, this is once the masculinity has been applied to the femininity, and we end up with this symbol right here. And to further understand what this symbol is here, it relates back to the false god of Israel known as Yahweh, who is symbolistically tied up with the moon, just as you see here, these depictions of the moon. And there's a lot to say with the symbolism of the moon, but the moon represents this duality, the combination of both light and dark, good and evil. Exactly what Yahweh is. You heard me say this in the beginning of the series, that Yahweh has a wife. Well, once you understand this, you can begin to see who that wife is, and then these beings become one, and this is the androgynous symbolism of that occultic knowledge that is mixed between this masculinity and this femininity of deity. But I told you that this is not really Yahweh. Yahweh really is not even real. It's a title, and many of these fallen lords are being titled as Yahweh. And even in the Bible, where we have the representation of our loving Father, they have also put the title of Yahweh over it. It's not, the titles have been so condensed that they're taking titles of both negative and positive deities and just applying it to one God, when at the same time there are positive and negative deities that have separate titles, which are the fallen lords and then those sons of God that did not rebel. So this really isn't Yahweh himself. It's more or less a symbolistic interpretation of the occultic knowledge of ancient Israel that is symbolized and unified as one deity, this goat god, this moon god of ancient Israel, the duality. So this is the unification of these two right here. Now, I guess what I'll do is I'll just cut to the chase, and you know the symbolism here with the owl. And I told you that I want you to see the owl manifest right here. Well, here it goes. There's your owl. You're looking at the owl head right here. This is the shape of the head. Here is the top of the owl head, in which most owls, or the most famous pictures of owls, have these little tufts of feathers like horns off their head. And this would be right about where the mouth or the beak would be. And of course we have the owl with his wings stretched out, and then his little feet sticking out here, and then his little tail feathers behind. And yes, it's a rather big-headed owl. And I want you to notice something, that this owl now begins to have what appears to be like a veil over its eyes, almost like a covering. Now remember, owls are supposed to be good seers. Well, in other words, this owl is blinded. It has a veil over its eyes. Now, if you begin to look closer at the veil that's over the eyes of this symbolic owl, now you begin to see who it is. It's the serpent. There is the end of the serpent's nose, the opening of its mouth, even the other side of the jaw here. There's the eye. There's the other little nostril, the outlining of the head, and then the rest of the coiling of the body of this serpent with its open mouth, which is really telling you where this occultic knowledge, this knowledge of good and evil, is ultimately coming from. It's coming from the serpent. It's coming from the serpent root of Eden, that offer, that original offer of the knowledge of good and evil. So this very wisdom of this supposed Baphomet, or this very wisdom of the supposed sacred feminine, is nothing more than the original lie, the original wisdom that was brought by the serpent. And the wisdom has to do with how they are to achieve their divinity. And then this is what is so relative with this symbol right here. This is the duality that they must use to achieve their divinity. And since we're talking about as above, so too below, it's symbolized as a sexual act. And this rising Kundalini serpent must bust through the material. Mankind is created from the dust of the earth. Well, it says this beast shall rise out of the earth. Well, this illumination, or this Kundalini rising serpent, also rises out of the earth. And as it rises out of the earth, it ends up joining with that of heaven. And there's that unity to where they can create what they're believing as this new man, or birthing this new race, or birthing this new order. So it's intimately tied up as a sexual act. So think about what I've showed you here. That, yeah, there is the male, in a sense, there's the male face at the top here of this symbol. I'm telling you that this is a dualistic God. Okay? It's both feminine and masculinity. Well, to see the feminine and to understand what is joined to this as the feminine, we have to understand what that effeminate occultic deity is. It's Ishtar. It is the Queen of Heaven. It's that Queen of Heaven that we see that northern Israel, false Israel, was making cakes unto in Jeremiah, sacrificing their children to in the book of Hosea per Ephraim. It's the same mother of the princes of Israel that we see in Ezekiel chapter 19, who is teaching these young lions to become murderers. And it's the very same two young lions that you see depicted here. So this original Queen of Heaven is that femininity, that occultic knowledge that would be joined to that masculinity. Would it not? By history? Yes, it would. Her symbolism is the owl. Well, just as I showed you, there's our owl. Perfect fractal. And then the root of the fractal is always the fruit to the root, and then the root to the fruit. And the root of this fruit is the serpent. I'll be back.